Yo, it's Key, and welcome to another episode of Woke Read Alouds. Today's Woke Read Aloud is called It Feels Good to Be Yourself, a book about gender identity. Now, the really cool thing about gender identity is that it can either stay the same or it can change over time. Sometimes people's gender identity that changes or shifts over time, sometimes we call those people gender fluid because their gender can change and shift. And that's also really cool and really interesting. Some people's gender identity stays the same from the moment that they understand who they are till they get to be 80, 90 years old. But that's not the case for everybody. But most of the time, you know who you are at a really young age, which is why this book is really exciting to read, because we want to be able to feel good about who we are in our own gender identities, and we need to learn about other people's gender identities so that we can do our jobs of making other people feel good about who they are too, because that's really important. It's important to not just make sure that we feel good, but we got to do our parts to make sure other people, our friends, our family members, people we just meet, we need to make sure that they feel good about who they are too. So let's read It Feels Good to Be Yourself, a book about gender identity. Now, this is the title. The title are the big words that tell you what the book is going to be about. We know that this book is going to be about celebrating different gender identities, right? Now, this down here, these words, this is the author's name. It tells us who wrote the words in the book. The author of this book is Teresa Thorne. Over here, this is the illustrator's name. The illustrator creates the pictures. There are multiple different ways that illustrators can create pictures. And this illustrator's name is Noah Grigney. This part of the book is called the spine. The spine holds all the pages together. It Feels Good to Be Yourself, a book about gender identity. This is Ruthie. She's a transgender girl. That means when she was born, everyone thought she was a boy until she grew a little older, old enough to tell everyone that she's actually a girl. Girl is Ruthie's gender identity. Ooh, okay. Can you say the word transgender? Good. Someone who's transgender, that means that their body, their physical anatomy, can you say anatomy? Right, your anatomy are all the parts that make up your body. Someone who's transgender, their physical anatomy doesn't match who they know they are inside. It doesn't match. So that's what we mean by transgender. It's when your physical body or your anatomy doesn't match who you know you are. This is Ruthie's brother, Xavier. Xavier is a cisgender boy. That means when Xavier was born, everyone thought he was a boy. And as he grew older, it turned out that everyone was right. He is a boy. Boy is Xavier's gender identity. So we learned that Ruthie, Xavier's sister, is transgender. And now we're learning that Xavier is cisgender. Can you say cisgender? Good. When you're cisgender, the body or physical anatomy that you're born with matches who you know you are. That's the difference. When you're transgender, remember, your body or physical anatomy doesn't match who you know you are. But when you're cisgender, your body and physical anatomy does match who you know you are. That's what's different between the two of them. So Ruthie's a girl and Xavier's a boy. There are so many different ways to be a boy or a girl. Too many to fit in a book. But not everyone feels like either a boy or a girl. Oh, they talking to me. I don't feel like a boy or a girl. Remember we talked about that? Non-binary is a helpful word that can describe a kid who doesn't feel exactly like a boy or a girl. Can you say the word non-binary? Good. Now just say the word binary. Okay, let's talk about the binary for a second. The binary was created by people who thought there can only be two categories of something. When we hear this prefix, so the beginning of the word is called the prefix. When we hear the beginning of the word bi, that means two. right? Like a bicycle, right? Or if someone, if a living being stands on two legs, they're bipedal. Remember that word? Okay, so we know that bi means two. So when we hear binary, that means two categories. And when we're talking about gender, people often just say that gender only has two categories, girl and boy. But you know what? We know that's not true. We know that's not true because gender is magnificent. It's mysterious. It's interesting. It's ever changing and expanding and evolving. And so we know that because gender is so magical, it can't just have two categories. So the binary actually doesn't really exist for a lot of people. So when we say non-binary, what we're saying is that person doesn't fit into either of those two categories, boy or girl. That person exists somewhere either between those categories or outside of those categories. I mean, honestly, the possibilities are endless when you're non-binary. You feel like different energy. That's how I feel. So that's what we mean by non-binary. And you might feel that way too. This is Ruthie's friend, Alex. Alex is both a boy and a girl. When Alex was born, everyone thought Alex was a girl, but Alex is both boy and girl. This is Alex's gender identity. See, so we know that some kids and some people feel like both a boy and a girl. That's how they know who they are. Now, it's not up to us to tell anybody else based on how they look or what we think we know about gender, who that person is. So I can't look at Alex and just decide I know who Alex is. If Alex is telling me I'm a boy and a girl, then I gotta believe Alex because Alex knows themselves the best. And actually, I think it's pretty cool. This is Alex's friend, JJ. JJ is neither a boy nor a girl. Ever since JJ was very little, they never felt exactly like a boy or a girl. They just felt like themselves, kind of like me. This is JJ's gender identity. Alex and JJ are both non-binary, like me. Just like there are many different ways to be a boy or a girl, there are many different ways to be non-binary too. Too many to fit in a book. Some kids feel like girls, some kids feel like boys. Some kids feel like a little bit of both, part boy and part girl. Some kids don't exactly feel like a boy or a girl. They feel like neither. Some kids feel that their gender identity isn't always the same, that it's often changing. We talked about that before, that gender doesn't necessarily always stay the same throughout your whole life. It can change, it can shift, it can almost move like a wave moves, right? Pretty fluid. You know how water just moves and it spreads in different ways? Well, that's very similar to our gender identities. For some people, gender is fluid. It kind of moves like water throughout their lives, and so it's constantly changing for some people. And even with all these possible ways to be, some kids don't feel like any of the words they know fit them exactly right. There are a never-ending number of ways to be yourself in the world. Now, I was saying before, like, even if you don't feel like a boy or a girl, or maybe you feel like both a boy or a girl, you can feel like so much else. You can feel like so many different energies throughout your life. Now, it's interesting because some people don't actually like to call themselves anything. They don't like to label themselves. Those people, you call them by their names. Call them by their name. Good. Ooh, call them by their name. Hey, call them by their name. Hey, and we're back. I mean, you should call everybody by their names, the names that they want to be called. But some people prefer not to have a label. They don't feel like any of the words that we're talking about. Whether you feel like a boy or a girl, both or neither, or if you describe yourself another way, that is your gender identity. Your gender identity might match what people thought you were when you were born, or it might not. It's important to remember that when we talk about our gender identities, we're really talking about who we know we are. It's not up to anybody else to tell us who we are. We're the experts of ourselves. We are the people that know the most about ourselves. You know the most about yourself. You know how you feel, and you know who you are. And even sometimes if you feel like you don't know who you are, because that happens to us sometimes throughout our lives, we have different experiences that help us understand more about who we are. They help us learn more about ourselves so that one day we can sit and tell somebody, actually, this is who I am. And that's really what matters. It doesn't matter what other people decide they want to call you or what they think you are, who they think you are. It matters who you know you are. See, when you were born, you couldn't tell people who you were or how you felt. Why do you think that is? Why do you think when you're born, you can't tell people who you are or how you feel? Take a moment to think about that. All right, what did you come up with? Right. When you're first born and you're a little baby, you might not be able to talk yet. You can't express yourself in a way where adults really truly understand you with words, because you might just come out crying. Some babies don't come out crying, but you're not able to say words that adults can understand yet to be able to let them know that this is who you are. So the adults, they looked at you and made a guess. Maybe they got it right. Maybe they got it wrong. What a baby's body looks like when they're born can be a clue to what the baby's gender will be, but not always. When people guess wrong, it's okay to let them know. Ruthie was 5 when she told her parents, "Oh, how many of you are 5? I used to be 5 once too. Can you believe it? I know you think I'm a boy, but really, I feel like a girl." That's Ruthie. That was Ruthie telling her parents how she felt. Ruthie knew when she was 5 exactly who she was. Oops, Ruthie was a girl all along. They just didn't know it at first. Oh, let me tell you something about this picture. I love this picture so much because when Ruthie spoke her truth, when Ruthie told the truth about who she is, her parents didn't get upset. They didn't get angry. What did they do? What did Ruthie's parents do? They hugged her. They hugged her. They showed her so much love. They showed her so much love. That is so important. This is how your parents should respond. This is how you should feel when you tell them who you are. You should feel just as loved as Ruthie felt. That's the appropriate way to respond, because it doesn't matter whether or not you identify as any of these words that we're giving you. What matters is that you got a good heart and you know who you are, and you deserve to feel love no matter how you feel inside. When people guess right, it's also okay to let them know. Xavier was 3.5 when he told his family, "I'm a boy. I like being a boy." So it's cool to tell your family that they're right. So if your family made a guess about who you are and that guess is right, it's cool to tell them, "You know what, parents? You know what, auntie? You know what, uncle? You know what, friend? You right. I am a boy." And if they make a guess and it's wrong, you should still be able to tell them that too. "Hey, auntie. Hey, unc. Hey, friend. Hey, parents. You got it wrong. I'm not actually a girl. I'm a boy." Or, "I'm not actually a girl. I'm non-binary." You should be able to tell them either way, whether or not their guess was right or whether or not their guess was wrong. And you should still receive love each and every time. You might feel like a boy. You might feel like a girl. You might feel like both boy and girl, or like neither. You might feel like your gender changes from day to day or from year to year. You might feel like none of these words describes you perfectly. You might not be sure yet. Maybe you're still figuring it out. Let's take a feeling moment. I want to take a feeling moment because I want to give us some time and space to feel all of our feelings about this book. There's probably so many new words that you're learning, or maybe you've heard them before, or maybe you're hearing words that match how you feel. Maybe you're hearing words that make you feel good about who you know you are. I want to give us a feeling moment to really feel all of our feelings. And I want you to think, who am I? What is my gender identity? You might not know yet, but you might know. So take a moment to think about that. Did you take a moment? Okay, good. Now, here's the cool part. Remember we always said gender is fluid. It can change. So you might think you know who you are now, and you might be someone different later. And that's okay, because all of this is normal. Your gender can stay the same or it can change. It really doesn't matter, because you're going to be you no matter who you are, and everyone should love you regardless, because you deserve love. Your feelings about your gender are real. Listen to your heart. No matter what your gender identity is, you are okay exactly the way that you are, and you are loved. See, I told you. Didn't I tell you? I told you were loved. I told you good. We know that. It feels good to be yourself, doesn't it? The end, the end, the end, the end. But you know something? Just because this book ended doesn't mean the conversations about gender identity should end. You should be able to have those conversations as much as you want with pretty much anybody you want. But I'm going to keep it real with you for a second. Having conversations about gender identity might be hard for some people. And sometimes when people don't understand or haven't really had enough experiences to be able to understand that gender is bigger than the binary we talked about, right? Gender is more than just two categories. Sometimes those people get angry, and sometimes those people get upset, and sometimes they get frustrated. And I want to make sure that you know, if you come across people who don't understand your gender identity, it is not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not a reflection of who you are. You are loved and beautiful no matter who you are. It just means that that person, they have a lot of healing that they have to do. It means that that person just might not have the knowledge that they need to have to know how to love you the right way. And you know what? I want to make sure that you know that, because it's important, because in this life, you're going to come across people who might say and do hurtful things based on your gender identity. And it's really actually quite sad. Sometimes it can be a little scary. And I want to make sure that you know, regardless, that you are loved and that you have the right to feel safe and protected in who you are. And you should always find those people that make sure that you feel good about yourself, right? Because it feels good to be yourself, and you deserve to be yourself. Freely be yourself, right? And all of the different energies that make up who you are. Just know that there are going to be moments that you have to protect yourself, okay? So make sure that you do that, and make sure you find the people that don't just walk through life just wanting to feel good about themselves, but they also walk through life making an effort to make sure you feel good about yourself too. Because gender is magical. I'm telling you, it is magical to be who you are. And it is magical to celebrate all of the other possible ways that everyone else in this world, in this universe, can be. We're all just energy. And we can be different energies at any time. And sometimes our energies stay the same, and sometimes those energies change. But what's most important is that you know who you are. And that's why it feels good to be yourself.